much of discrimination do you think the Tuskegee Airmen eliminated?
A great deal. Once we got overseas, we weren't wanted. When our guys got overseas, we weren't welcome. But because of the performance, because of the things that the 99th did, for example, and then the 332nd behind them, because of the performances of the units, what they did in protecting white pilots and white airplanes, they gained a reputation that sort of minimized, in some respects, eliminated, in some respects, the racial hatred that was predominant in the service. That's one of the reasons Truman was able to integrate the service in 1948. It was only 3 years after the war ended. He was able to do it because the 99th had carried themselves so well. They did not carry any chips on their shoulders. There was no hatred. They performed admirably. They performed better than their counterparts in the majority community. They were well known in the Mediterranean theater for their ability to protect our bombers, for example, to protect our soldiers. So I think they did a great deal to offset discrimination in this country, even after the war was over. They didn't hear about it for like 30 or 40 years, so nothing happened, for the next 35 years. But once we came out and they found out about us, the majority of the community, they welcomed us. They were just adamant in their positive view of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Why did you decide to keep going even with all the hostility?
It wasn't, once you join the service, you don't have a choice about keep going. Once you're in the service, you're gonna go until they turn you loose. So it wasn't a matter of why did I decide. I really wasn't all that enamored with what was lie ahead. I wanted to learn how to fly. That was the only thing at the time that was important to me. I wanted to learn how to fly. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to fly the P-40 airplane. That was all. Nothing else interfered. So all of my time, from the time I took the test until the time I graduated, all I wanted to do was fly. So I didn't concern myself with the hostilities, with the quota system, with anything else. I just wanted to remain in that program until I graduated.
I think most of the bombers didn't know they were being protected by the Tuskegee Airmen.
Yes,
they found out.
I'm sorry?
What did they feel like when they found out?
Originally, they didn't know they were being protected by the Tuskegee Airmen. Originally, we had no way of identifying. The 99th, for example, had no way of identifying. In the early stages of the war, the first year that we were out, not a year, 6 months, they had no way of knowing because we were flying P-40s just like everybody else with no distinguishing features on them. But after about 6 months, when the 99 went over and the 332nd followed them, they went into these 51s, and you'll see it has a red tail. That was an identification. And from that point on, whenever they saw a P-51 with a red tail, they knew it was a 332nd Fighter Group. They knew it was a Black Air Force. And because we really never lost a bomber, they became enamored with our group because they knew, well, as I've heard many times from white people, their families, etc., when I speak, they knew when they looked out the window and saw a red tail on a P-51, they knew their chances of getting to the target and back to their base greatly improved. These are words I've heard from the people themselves.
Did the white take it as far as attacking the black when they were trying to prove their point? Did they ever attack a black man?
No, not that we know of. No, never heard of any atrocities against our people. Even the Germans treated us better than the Americans did. Some of our guys got shot down and ended up in POW camps, and they came home. Every one of our guys who went into a POW camp came home. There were 30 of them. Every one of them survived the war and came home. and they all to a man said one thing was that the Germans treated them better, more respectful than the Americans did in the POW camps.
How did the Tuskegee Airmen get good enough to join the Air Force? Or, as you said, there is no Air Force, so...
Yeah, the Air Corps, what did you say? Say it again.
How did the Tuskegee Airmen get good enough to join the Army?
How did they get good enough? They didn't need they didn't need to be good. The requirements initially, when the first group went in, there was no war. So there was a little different set of circumstances. The war hadn't started yet. The requirements were you had to be a college graduate. You had to, you had to be a college graduate. You had to be 21 or older and not married. So the first group of guys were all college graduates, all of whom had gone through the CPT program, so they were already pilots. So getting into the Air Corps for them was being healthy, being able to pass the physical, meeting those requirements. And they weren't that many. The first class was 13 people, 5 of whom graduated. So there really wasn't an overwhelming number of African Americans, because most of us didn't know about it. You know, the only guys that knew about it were the ones who were in the CPT program. And the only reason they were in the CPT program was they were flying, they were learning to fly. So getting in, once the war started, all you had to do was take a test and pass the physical. Take a test, pass the physical, be a citizen, had a high school education, had to have a high school diploma, be 18 years old. When I enlisted, I took the test, I was only 17. I hadn't finished high school yet. I had to wait till I finished high school, and a month after I finished high school, I became 18 before I went into the service. So during the time I went in, there was a war going on, and it wasn't difficult to apply. It was difficult to succeed, to get through flight school, but it wasn't difficult to get in.
How much encouragement did you get from, like, anyone?
My primary encouragement came from a white school teacher. If it had not been, his name was Mr. Cosgrove. If it had not been for Mr. Cosgrove in the 12th grade, he's the one who told me about the tests. He's the one who told me they were accepting African Americans in the Air Corps. I knew none of that. If it wasn't for that teacher who was teaching a class in aeronautics in Jordan High School in Compton, California, who told those of us in his class about, one, the test was going to be in January 1943, and encouraged us to go down and take the test. I wanted to fly, so it didn't take much encouragement to get me down there. And I passed the test, went to March Air Force Base, took the physical, finished high school, became 18, and went into the service.
If the Tuskegee Airmen didn't do what they did, would blacks be where we are today?
I can't say that things would not have evolved the way that they evolved had we not gotten into the service. There might have been some differences. It might have been a little longer before they got into the services that had opportunity. It might have been a little longer. But I think the evolution of equality with the people who were protesting in the 60s, for example, the marches, the freedom marches, the Selma, all of those things would have taken place anyway, might have taken place sooner. And eventually discrimination and segregation would have been eliminated to the level it is today. I think that evolution would have progressed in spite of the fact that Tuskegee Airmen were, if we had not been Tuskegee Airmen at that point, we'd have been Tuskegee Airmen a little later on. Sooner or later, we were going to be Tuskegee Airmen. That, I think, was inevitable.
Did your friends encourage you and other Tuskegee Airmen, or did they stay low?
We were a very close-knit group. Our people aren't necessarily noted always for being brotherly love, but the closest association I ever had was with my classmates. We helped each other. We were not in competition with each other, even though we knew that some of us weren't going to make it. But we helped each other. We were very close and remained close through the years. All of my classmates are dead. All my fighter pilot classmates are gone. I'm the only one left in my class. So when I go, my class is gone. Everybody's gone. But we were a very homogeneous group. Not just my class, but all the classes before me and all the classes after me. The guys were going to be protecting each other. When you go out in the battle, you got to depend on your buddy, your wingman, or your flight leader for your protection. So it had to be a good relation. You had to depend on your mechanics. You had to be very close to your crew chiefs, because those guys, your life depended on how well they took care of your airplane. So I think the Tuskegee Airmen, the association of individuals in the Tuskegee Airmen, were far greater than you'll see almost any place today.
Why did you want to fly instead of like be a Navy or Army soldier?
Why? Well, that's very. One of the reasons I wanted to fly was I didn't want to be a regular Army soldier. I was not looking for spending my life in a muddy foxhole. I was not looking at having 50 guys shooting at me from across the way, living in mud and eating from cans, and the hardships that a boot on the ground, the soldiers have, is unbearable. To me, I just would never have wanted to go into a war and live that kind of life. I have greatest admiration for people who gave their lives and who got hurt and maimed on the ground. War is a horrible thing. In the air, it was me against the other guy, and I didn't have a problem with him and me. I had a problem with me and them, but not with him and me. I always figured I could take care of myself if I had to.
Could you have done better in the skies than on the ground?
Yes, I could have, because I loved what I was doing up in the sky. I would not be happy with what I was doing on the ground. So yes, I would have been better in the sky. I was better at it, really.
At first, how hostile were white towards black?
Well, at first the whites outside of the community of the Army were in the South, not in the West, not in the North, in the Northeast, not in the Northeast or the entire West. You didn't have much. The Middle America and the South were the bad places where blacks were mistreated.